Welcome to the Life You're Made For with me, Dr. Heather Penny. We're going to be having conversations to talk about us spiraling up versus spiraling down, because we all want to be living lives that are about thriving, not just surviving. This is the life you're made for. So let's get going. Well, hello, everyone. I am so excited to have our guest today, Sharon McMahon. Hi, Sharon. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, of course. I've heard so many great things about you. And I was reading your bio. My goodness, you've been busy, very busy the last several years.
Been a busy few years.
Yes, you have been. Can you just give us, our guests and our listeners, a little bit about idea of who you are and what you do and how you landed and what you're doing? I don't even know how to describe it.
Well, I'm a longtime government teacher, a longtime government and law teacher, and now I work mostly on Instagram, sharing nonpartisan, fact-based government information with people. But we also do things like raise money for various causes. We've raised over $7 million in the last couple of years and crowdfunded it and given it away to people or groups in need. And, I run book clubs and things of that nature, but that's the gist.
Okay, you said that very casually. I want to back up to your nonprofits and what you're giving money to. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, every year we have a holiday giving campaign where people can nominate somebody who might need it. In the summer, we have a teacher grant program that allows us to directly impact teachers and students via grants. But we also work with organizations like World Central Kitchen and other really amazing nonprofits like RIP Medical Debt and others to impact the world for good. And we do that just by crowdfunding small amounts of money. People send their Venmo balance or they send their, what they have left in PayPal, and drops make an ocean. We, most of us can't personally write a check for $850,000, but all of us together can put our 50 cents or $3 or $6.22 together and come up with $850,000, which will impact far more lives than we even imagine. So it's been a very gratifying, heartwarming endeavor, and also a challenge. It's a challenge to responsibly give money away. It requires a lot of time and effort to responsibly give money away. But it's an effort well spent.
Oh, I love it. When I was reading on your bio, I think the phrase that stood out to me is you are on a mission to combat political misinformation with nonpartisan facts. Clearly, you're stepping into a niche here. Tell me a little bit more of what you do and how you got into this.
It's really just an extension of what I've been doing in the classroom for many years. Most teachers that I know, especially if they work in a field like the social sciences, the social studies, this is what they do every day. They are out there encouraging their students to learn critical thinking skills, to evaluate challenging topics for a variety, analyze it from a variety of viewpoints, to understand the facts so that their opinions can be informed. So you can have an informed opinion. It's hard to have an informed opinion if you have no information, right? Like you can't have an educated opinion, no education. So my goal is not to tell people what to think about a topic. It's to help them learn how to think about a topic. And understanding how to think about a topic starts with understanding many of the underlying facts surrounding it.
Boy, you're speaking my language, critical thinking. And I often use that phrase myself as a professor and also an educator myself. I've said, I do not want to tell you what to think. I want to expose you enough to what's out there so that you can really hone in your critical thinking skills and decide how you want to think on an issue.
I'm sure you relate to this as a teacher, that wouldn't you rather have a student who has carefully thought about an issue and arrived at a conclusion that perhaps is different than your own. But that's actually a much more interesting conversation that might bring up issues that maybe you've never thought of. I feel a lot more satisfied as an educator with a student who has used all of their skills and maybe thinks something different than I do. I'd much rather have that than somebody who just parrots what I tell them to say. Here are the 5 facts you need to know, when they just regurgitate them. That's not critical thinking. And I'd much rather have somebody who thinks critically and arrives at a different conclusion than somebody who just parrots my own talking points back to me.
So well said. As a leadership coach, it's a lot of what I say. I have the 3 C's: clarity, confidence, and courage. And it's about your clarity, not my clarity. It's about your clarity. It's about your confidence, not mine, but yours. It's about your courage, not mine, but yours. And yet at the same hand, if we're not cultivating that and we're focused on parroting or focused on emulating or choosing sides, we are diminishing, not just critical thinking, but we're diminishing personal clarity, personal confidence, and personal courage.
Yeah, because what happens if somebody says, oh, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And if all you have memorized are your 5 talking points, suddenly you have lost all your confidence because you have not thought about this issue from a variety of viewpoints, and you don't have anything to say in retort. And that's where then we start getting into like the personal attacks and the personal confrontations that don't lead to anything productive, that don't lead to anybody leaving the conversation feeling elevated. You can always tell when someone has reached the end of their confidence or their knowledge on a topic, because that's immediately when it devolves into the like, yeah, well, your mom's ugly.
Yeah, the personal attacks start coming, don't they?
Yeah.
I'm curious, you probably have thought about this a little bit more, but I definitely want to dive into this space. My new book that's coming out is called Grace Space. And the essence of this in my work in corporate America is there was so much conversation around safe space, which I love and I appreciate that. But what I feel like it was connoting was this permission to create your safe space and then go run to your safe space, but kind of lob grenades over to other people's safe spaces. And the fact that we needed safe spaces felt like we were working against ourselves as a community. And so in my work as a leadership coach, I started this idea of let's create spaces of grace, which is about goodwill. It's about being considerate. It's about staying curious. It's about, I have 7 attributes to it, but the first one that's coming to my mind is it's about responding instead of reacting. I guess I want to ask you to speak a little bit to that, because in my work as a coach, I'm realizing we're needing to talk about a way to create spaces to invite in good conversation so that we can collectively troubleshoot together and problem solve and move into moving humanity forward, as Maria Shriver likes to say, talking about moving humanity forward. I guess I want to ask you to speak a little bit to that and creating these spaces that allow people to raise that collective clarity, a collective intelligence, and move something forward.
Yeah, I totally understand this notion of a safe space, because for so long, people who have long been marginalized have not had one.
Yeah.
Right. They were just expected to just take whatever abuse was heaped on them. And I think we can all understand that's not right. That is not right. There is not a place in the workplace for, sexual harassment. There is no place in the workplace for, people being verbally or emotionally abused. So that inclination to want to make safe, inclusive spaces in the workplace, I completely understand, and I agree with this idea that we should be working to create environments in which people feel safe, because that is how they are able to thrive. Right. Like we can't thrive in a war zone. So we need that. But I also take your point that if all we do is retreat to the safe space that we have constructed, then we are not actually having real and meaningful interactions with the outside world. We are sitting in our little bunker, our little silo that we have built. And our silo, because we are flawed human beings, our silo will have construction problems.
Well said.
Our silo is not going to be perfectly engineered.
We're not perfect human beings.
Yeah, weird how that worked out. So inevitably, we're going to realize that our little, bunker that we've constructed has issues with it. And we need to have developed those relationships with other people who can help us out. We need to have developed the relationships to be able to help someone else. And if all we ever do is just remain in our own isolated little safe environment, there's no growth in that environment. We all know, working in leadership, I'm sure very, very familiar, your listeners very familiar of this concept of there's no growth in your safe zone, and there's no safety in your growth zone. And so if you want to progress, if you want to move humanity forward, if you want to make you want to develop your own self, it does require leaving this safe bunker that you have constructed to be able to interact with other people. And how do we do that in a way that is constructive and productive? And also, let's go of some of the arrogance that my way is the best and only way. Because that's the assumption when you're inside your little safe house, is that this house is the best house for me. It's the safe house for me. It's the only way for me. And that is, in some ways, yes, you do know what you might need in a given scenario. But in some ways, it can tend to be an arrogance that I am the only person with any wisdom in this scenario. I am the only person that needs to be listened to. I am the only person in this community whose voice matters. So I do think there's a balance to be struck there, to your point, between feeling welcome, feeling as though you're not walking into a war zone at your work or your home or your family every day, but also being willing and able to grow and offering other people those opportunities for themselves as well.
Gosh, I love that point. It's making me think about this idea that safe spaces are necessary for a season. But if that's the only thing that we have context for, to your point, we are not going to give ourselves the opportunity to learn, to grow, to transform. And it also made me think, the bigger those spaces get, where you get more members, that's where I would think the arrogance and the hubris really grows, right? Where you're thinking, it's not just me, it's now 5,000 other people think this. And now we call ourselves a name. We've got belonging here. So now there's this focus then of generating one style of thinking and almost force feeding it to other people. So the safe space, ironically, then becomes unsafe for other people because it starts becoming toxic. So as you're talking, I just thought it's so important to remember that sometimes we outgrow things, and a safe space is probably very needed for a certain season in life and for a certain time. But there's then the shadow side of that, is we can get stuck in there, or we can start collecting more and more people to join us in that safe space. And then we grow either the arrogance or the vitriol or the biased thinking that lets go of any kind of curiosity or connection to humanity.
Yeah. I think if you think about the safe space being a bunker in a war zone, that's probably needed and necessary when your city is being shelled. Yeah. Right. But can you live there forever? Is that the good life? Is that your highest purpose, is to remain in that bunker for the rest of your days? It might serve a purpose. It might have a season, but you can't stay there.
Okay. So let's take this to you personally. What got you out of your own safe space? You use this term of, developing relationships to help someone. You said that. I quickly wrote it down because I thought, I love that. I love that. We talk about purpose. My book is The Life You're Made For. What made you step into a new space or create a new space outside of teaching in, was it high school? Yeah. What made you kind of create a whole new space?
I realized that there was nowhere, it seemed, for the just average, ordinary American to go to understand how things actually worked. There was news what people told me is that they would watch the news and they would spend the rest of the day spinning with anxiety, or they would watch the news and they would feel like the anger rise in their chest. And they would look back and they would realize that I was actually believing something that was not at all true. And then the embarrassment that comes, the anger that comes from realizing that, like, dang, I did not realize that I had been lied to. So realizing that there were so few places where people could go to just have a simple question answered, without having to spend 18 years Googling and trying to sort through information that you don't necessarily understand. I look at it a little bit like, if I know that something is wrong with my car and I could Google for the answer, but I probably am still not going to understand it if I don't know anything about cars. And somebody's like, well, it's probably the, spark plugs. I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? Like the amount of learning I would need to do to be able to make sense of that information. I'm not interested in doing that. I'm not interested. I don't have the time for it. And so consequently, something either remains wrong with my car, or I have to take it somewhere and I have to be able to trust that somebody's telling me the right thing. And so there was just nowhere for someone to go to say, this mechanic is telling me that the spark plugs are bad. Is that an accurate assessment of what, is going on? And so having that, I have found, has been very, very, hopefully, useful to some people. And it's definitely been a growth journey for me as well.
Well, that's where it's going to go. Maybe it's the coach in me, but I want to say, what have you learned in this growth journey? Because, I've started my coaching company about 15 years ago now, but man, don't we learn a lot when we go and step out of the spaces that are nicely formed for us and allow us to know where the next kind of tier on the ladder is and where we need to kind of keep going to. And then when we venture out and say, I think I'm made for more and I want to go start my own company or do my own podcast or start talking about what I believe the world is really needing to have a conversation around. I guess I want to ask you, what have you learned about yourself and what have you learned about humanity?
One of the biggest things I've learned about humanity is that almost everything we believe about somebody who is not part of our in-group, almost everything we believe about somebody that we think of as an out-group, that group over there, they don't share my values. They don't think the way that I think. They believe in X, Y, or Z, that out group, that group that's over there. Almost everything that we believe about that out group is not true. And we're operating in the world as if our view of the out group is the correct one. And we interact with them as though our beliefs about them are true, when in reality, they almost never are. And it is a tremendously impactful thing when you realize how much other people actually do care about each other. When you realize how much other people that maybe you thought were part of an out group do care about the world or the United States and about wanting to make it better. When you realize how much you do have in common, it's very, very easy to do online to be like, well, that group is the worst. And here's 25 reasons why. It's very easy to do.
Right. And look at all these people who agree with me.
Yeah. And we know that we get hits of positive neurotransmitters when we are seeing information about the outgroup that agrees with our already held beliefs about them. When we are like, that outgroup is the worst. Of course, we're not thinking the word outgroup in our mind, but we all can picture, that group over there. Group A is the absolute worst group. I hate them. I wish they would go away forever. when you realize that almost everything you think about group A is in fact not true, it completely changes the way you look at the world. And the world is different because you see it differently.
Wow. Do you have an example of that? What's coming to mind?
There are, there's a lot of examples. Many of them are very sensitive topics that I won't parse out here and now, just because it's not, we don't have time to get all the way into it. But I think, one way that you might look at this is when a group is trying to pass a law that you really disagree with. Your perception, this is just a tiny example of why they want to pass that law, is that they are trying to repress you. They hate people that are in your in-group. They're trying to take away your rights. They, hate democracy. They, a whole list of things. You might have this big running tally in your mind of like, well, only people who believe the following 5 things would want to do something like that. So your belief about that group is based on your understanding of what kind of person would want to pass that law. When in reality, that's not their motivation at all. And it's difficult for us to accept sometimes that is not in fact their motivation, because it feels better for us to believe what we already believe. It feels safe and secure for us to continue. It feels safe and secure for us to continue to believe bad things about that other group, because that reinforces in our own mind that we're correct. We have assessed the situation accurately. We are in the correct group, and the out group they are in fact the bad guys. And it feels good to us from a human community standpoint to be part of an in-group. So when we can reinforce our already held beliefs, that feels good to us. So watching the hate content online where they're like, watch this video of this crazy person saying dumb stuff on the internet. And then they stop the video. They're like, can you believe how terrible? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? We watch those because they make us feel good. They make us feel good. We think that we're watching it to be outraged about how dumb the other person is, but in reality, we're watching because it makes us feel good about our own beliefs, our own choices, and our own group. Anyway, that's just when you begin to understand that, it's actually quite transformational.
That's
not
powerful.
just.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
Not just for yourself, but it impacts how you walk through the world.
Yeah. And, I'm wondering, I don't know if it's because I'm in my 50s or so, but I think I'm realizing how much it hurts me either way. And I don't know if it's more of my sensitive nature or not, but I don't even care about the issue. I'm thinking of, like, for instance, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. And we are so not getting off on whether to do that. To your point earlier, this is not a topic of whether this is pro or con. It's more of, this is humanity that is scared and they're nervous, and everything from they want to feel protected to their personal rights want to feel protected to they want to feel protected as a community to how do we do the right thing ethically to make sure that we're not passing on virus. These are all questions that if we transcend to vaccinate or not to vaccinate, but we really transcend it, I think we'll see that there's so much commonality of we're all trying to do the right thing and we're all a little nervous about things. And we've never been here before. So we've got a lot more questions than answers. I think there's a sensitivity that I watch some of this and I go, okay, I know what it is that I want to do, but I have no interest in forming camps around that. I have more interest in hearing where everyone's coming from. And I guess I want to say, I think there's more people like that out there than we even have a category for. But I want to ask you, I mean, you're in that arena more. Are you seeing more people saying, I really want to hear both sides because I care about humanity versus just pushing my point?
I hear that all the time, actually, not specifically about, this topic, but just more broadly.
Sure.
And one of the things that a point that I frequently bring up that I sometimes have to remind myself of even is that it's actually okay to not have an opinion on everything.
Yes, I think that's what I was trying to say. Thank you.
It's actually okay to say, you know what, I need more information on that before I form an opinion. And we currently, live in a culture that wants you to form an opinion instantly. They want that opinion to be deeply held. They want you to feel outraged that if somebody doesn't agree with your opinion, you need to feel outraged. They want you to, gather the wagons around the people who share your opinion and to, shoot arrows at the people who are not in your wagon train. There's pressure to form an opinion on whatever it is instantly and vehemently. I don't think I don't think, first of all, that you need to have an opinion on everything. And why are more opinions better in all scenarios? I don't think they are. I don't think, especially if it's a topic that you don't have much education on, you don't have much training on. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying, you know what? I just haven't thought about that enough yet. I'm going to have to think about that some more. I'm going to have to educate myself more before I make a decision on that topic. It sounds like you've really done a lot of research and are doing what's right for you. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, so I'm going to take some time to do that before I form an opinion. Though saying I haven't decided yet is viewed by some people as wishy-washy, when in reality, it requires courage to say, I have not decided yet. Sometimes it is more courageous to stand alone in an I haven't decided than to take cover in the shelters of the people who have already formed an opinion.
I love that. I even want to build on that a little bit more. I think it's okay to even have a strong opinion and not share it. Sometimes people want to hear my opinion, and I do have some strong opinions about things, but I can feel like they want me to be on their team. And I'm not interested in being anyone's team. I'm interested in being a bridge. So you can feel that pull of, and I think that's the permission I want to give humanity too, as we're talking. I'm getting my own clarity. You can have really strong opinions about things, but keep it to yourself and be more interested in building a bridge to humanity. And there's times to share your opinions, and there's times to be in the gray area, and there's times to not have an opinion, and there's times to say, I've got a strong opinion, but it's not, I have no interest in sharing that because I have no interest in polarizing right now. And I know I've done that in the work that I've done where I've been asked point blank about things, and I'm realizing I do have an opinion on this, but I don't feel like I want to reserve the right that I don't need to share this. And I think that's another thing too, where some people feel like they're taking the coward's way out. To your point earlier of courage, they're taking the coward's way out of saying, I got to stand up for it. And I go, not always. You really don't. You really don't. If it's going to lose that either relational connection or that bridge to humanity that you want to have, you don't have to. You have the right to have a strong opinion and not share it.
And you also have to have the wisdom to know when those times are, right?
Yes.
And you can't develop that wisdom without having relationships with people who don't think like you. Without having relationships with people outside of your in-group. It's really difficult to develop that wisdom if you are only surrounded by information you already agree with, because then everything is going to seem like a 5-alarm fire. If you don't have any relationships with people over there, it is very, very, because that decision-making, that wisdom, that's a skill. You don't come out of your mother with the wisdom to know when to hold your tongue. You know what I mean? Like that's a skill that you develop.
Right.
And it's a skill that you have to practice. It's a muscle that has to be exercised, and you can't exercise it if your knee-jerk reaction is to share your strongly held opinion on absolutely everything. Walls should never be painted white. People should never have salads. Yes. Why are you wearing silver earrings? You know, like if literally everything is like level 100 opinion, first of all, it's exhausting. Nobody wants to be around you. But secondly, you can't ever flex that muscle of knowing like, what is my highest purpose in this scenario,
Mm-hmm.
is my highest purpose to help facilitate a conversation between two sides that have very diametrically opposed ideas? Is my highest purpose in this scenario to share a difficult journey that I've been on, so to give other people permission to heal? Is my highest purpose to, teach a lesson about X, Y, or Z? Your highest purpose in a given scenario is going to vary. It's going to vary. And sometimes it is not served by sharing your strong interior decorating opinions. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a silly example, but sometimes it just behooves you to bite your tongue and to preserve the relationship with the person, because that relationship is ultimately far more important than you having the quote unquote courage to talk about how ugly white walls are. You know what I mean? The other thing we forget is that when we burn a bridge by sharing our strongly held opinion, and I'm not saying there's no time to share your opinions, there are times, but when we burn a bridge, we forfeit the opportunity to influence that person in the future. We are forfeiting that opportunity. And it might be that in the future, there's a far more important issue that you need to influence or speak to somebody on. There might be in the future that you really wish you had not burned the bridge over the interior decorating, because now there's something very serious at hand.
Right.
And if you have that relationship, you might have the ability to influence them for good. But because you burned it over something ultimately inconsequential, now you've forfeited that right.
Gosh, I love that. I think that's something you probably learn in teaching, don't you? I'm thinking about that was an early life lesson for me when I taught in East LA to low socioeconomic and high at risk, and probably I had 140 students. And I realized very quickly my higher purpose, gosh, I love that question too. My highest purpose here is to build bridges with these students, not to get them to think like me or feel intimidated that they don't think like me. My highest purpose is to build these bridges. And so I remember being asked, what do you think about this? What do you think about that, Mrs. Pitty? What do you think about abortion? What do you think about, they wanted to know all the stuff about, and I would just smile. I said, I don't share that stuff, because my highest purpose here is to really connect with you all. And I don't want us to get in the weeds with what we think about or we don't think about. And I don't want anyone using, my status as a teacher to support your positioning.
It's, if you think about it from a teaching perspective, any teacher knows that the single most effective way to reach a student, in fact, really the only long-term effective way to reach a student, is with the relationship that you have with them. It is not in the power struggle. You might win a power struggle, but you will have ruined that relationship. You might win the battle in the moment, but you have lost the war with that student. And there are times when you have to win the power struggle, like when someone's safety is at risk. There are times you might have to be willing to win the power struggle in that moment to save other people. But by and large, if your goal is to reach any student, it is only the only vehicle is through the relationship. And I think that transcends a schoolhouse boundary. I think that's human nature, that if we want to impact somebody for good, that the most surefire way of doing that is with the relationship that we have with them and not in the power struggle that we have just won.
Oh, yeah. I bet you learned that a lot too with secondary. And I learned it with junior high. They're individuating, getting their own minds. And we don't want them to feel the power struggle. We want them to feel like a trusting relationship that is going to teach them how to think and not what to think. And which leads me back to my earlier question. Well, what have you learned about yourself?
Well, I've certainly learned, it's been like shining a spotlight on what my strengths and weaknesses are. Nothing does that like the public eye.
Oh,
right?
yeah, sure.
You will become quickly aware of what your strengths and weaknesses
And you got a
are.
lot of helpers telling you, don't
Yeah.
you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You sure do.
I have lots of helpers in my life.
Uh-huh. You sure do. And I have, it's been good for me to be able to reflect on what some of those are. Um, it's been good for me to be able to flex my wisdom muscles. It's been good for me to develop courage in new areas that I didn't really want to develop courage in, but were very valuable for me. I have a friend who's a coach, and she always likes to joke, like, never ask for patience or courage, because you are going to get opportunity to use both of those.
Yep. That's my word for the year is patience.
Yeah.
And
She's like, don't choose that one. Don't choose it. Don't choose courage. It's going to be scary.
Yeah.
One of the words that I keep coming back to is endurance. And that's just like just sort of a word that kind of reverberates, knocks around in my brain, is what does it look like to have endurance in this moment? And endurance to continue the journey, endurance to run the race set before you, essentially.
Yes.
And I'm not an elite athlete. So I'm not real good at using running metaphors. I don't know how you would actually have endurance in a real physical contest, but in a mental one, that is something that I have been able to understand more about my own limitations and my own strengths. And learning how to lean more heavily into my strengths instead of constantly trying to make up for my limitations.
Oh, total pull for us high achievers, isn't it? It's so easy to focus on, so what if I'm good at all these? Zero in on what I'm not good at and how do I get better at it? I think part of the maturing process is saying, yeah, I've never been good at that. But I'm really good at these areas. Let's see how I can continue to focus growing that and feel really confident in that. Definitely having areas of growth for sure, but knowing that tricky balance of saying, is this something that I need to let go, delegate to someone that's really good at, or is this an opportunity for me to grow and get good at something that I probably should have been good at? Such a powerful question as we kind of consider that clarity piece, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah. And sometimes it feels bad for a high achieving person to say, I have decided that is something I will not be good at.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? Like that is
I'm laughing because it's so rare that I hear that with all my high achieving clients. I'm like, have we considered that we might not be good at everything?
But being willing to say the phrase, I've decided that is something I'm not going to be good at.
Yeah.
Because people are often willing to admit when they're not good at something, but to say I'm giving myself permission to not be good at that, even moving forward.
Yes.
That can feel really scary.
Yes.
To say that I'm not going to be good at that.
Yes.
Now or next week.
Yeah. I won't and I don't want to be good at it. You know?
I don't care about it.
Yeah.
I don't care about being good at that.
You mentioned the word limitations, and on that same vein, I think one of the things I have to say a lot with my clients is, okay, we're going to talk about limitations today. You get the permission to have limitations. Most people, particularly high achieving, and they really were going for it in life, don't give themselves that permission to have limits. And it's a whole new paradigm shift for them to say, not only I have limits, but then to get clarity around what those limits are and then confidently assert, hey, that's not what I'm good at. And that's not what I want to be good at. And then having that courage to articulate it and to live it out. Courage is about taking action. So I guess I want to ask you that question. How are you handling some of your limits? What's your clarity around that?
When you become an entrepreneur or you are naturally somebody who's very type A driven individual who wants to achieve things, and you listen to public speakers and you listen to people who work in coaching or, executive development, et cetera, you are constantly bombarded with this message of, if you can dream it, you can do it.
Yeah.
you there's no limits. Your life is limitless. Stop holding yourself back.
Yeah. Which suddenly says you're never doing enough. Right.
Yeah, that's right. And so you get like really pumped about these messages of like, I can do everything that I set my mind to. Because we, like dream it, achieve it. And so that's a very common, popular way to think in certain circles. Totally. And I have certainly, I'm certainly familiar with it. Certainly familiar with that mindset. But one of the limitations that I have have come to terms with is that I'm really just not interested in living, number one, a life on the road. That I have a lot of like limitations around wanting to be home more often. It's not that I'll never make a public speaking appearance, or it's not that I just got back from one last week. So it's not that I will never do it. It's that I don't enjoy it, and I don't enjoy the public speaking. I enjoy connecting with the audience, but I don't enjoy the like pack and leave home and be away from the blah, 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 blah. Be totally gone for 10 days and sit in the airport. Instead of trying to feel bad at my friend, Mel Robbins, who like speaks like 50 times a year all over the country. Right. And she loves it and she's so good at it. And she's like the most in demand public speaker. And, she's just like at the top of her game. She's excellent at it. And it's where she thrives. Instead of constantly being like, well, I'm smart. Like I could do that,
Yeah.
People contact me and ask me to speak. I could do that.
And maybe I should be doing that.
Maybe I should be doing that because look at all the people, like should a TV show, instead of constantly comparing myself to people who are good at things that I don't enjoy. I think actually asking yourself, why don't I enjoy this is a tremendously powerful question, because I often feel like the things that come from an endless well, the things that are very easy for you, that's often where your gifting is, right? It's just like this endless well of being able to do that thing.
It's like
and
breathing.
It just comes so easily for you. For me, humor is an endless well. It's not hard for me to do silly voices and to make weird connections. It's not hard for me. It just like flows right out of me, but sitting in an airport sure does not.
I totally resonate.
Does not.
And the amount of prep and the amount of recovery, so not worth it.
Much.
I know.
Recovery.
I flew across the country to do a keynote in Florida, and I turned to my husband. I said, "This is not worth it. I don't care how much you pay me. This is not worth it. It's so much." And again, it's nothing against any of them or anyone else.
No.
I always keep wanting to say, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, totally.
I don't have the reserve that some of these people like Mel Robbins. When you said that, I go, oh yeah, I've seen her. She's everywhere.
Yeah, totally.
But I cannot do that.
She's clearly an extrovert that is energized by being around those crowds.
Yeah.
And, and that is that is her endless well, is like the connecting with the people and the in-person and I just love touching all your hands and sleeping on the floor. That is like absolutely not me. I'm like, what is this hotel? Why are we staying here? Like I don't.
Yes.
I'm not trying to sound like I'm not a diva, but you understand my point. Like, what is this hotel?
Yeah.
Why I'm not staying here?
Yeah. And where's my home? And where's my creature comforts? And where's my spaces that make me feel me?
Yes. Like, where's my sweater collection and my dogs and my planted pots of flowers and the birds singing. I don't want to wake up and look at this parking lot.
I know. And our books. I'm looking at both of our offices. We love our books.
Yes. I have discovered that I actually am good at connecting with people, but not in that kind of setting, you know? And again, I have a book coming out next year. I know I will do a lot of events for it, and I'm happy and excited to do them because I've been psyching myself up mentally for like a year to do it, et cetera. But that's a limitation for me. And to try to change it, to be like, I'm working on my love of sleeping on the floor of the airport. Why? Why do I need to work on that?
Exactly.
Who is that benefiting? Why do I need to work
travel
on
in this day and age? Yeah.
Why do I need to work on it? Why can't I just continue to get even more skilled at the things that I'm good at? Because ultimately what the world is benefiting from is not from my ability to take a nap in a chair. The world is benefiting from my ability to, use the gifts that I do have. So anyway, when we're talking about limitations, some of it is just like giving yourself permission to not like the things you don't like.
Yes.
And for somebody else to be good at that. It's okay for Mel Robbins to be good at that. And for me to cheer her on, to be like, you are fantastic at this. Please, that is clearly your gifting. Please go out and do more of it, because the world needs what you have to offer. That is not what I have to offer. What I have to offer is like a Minnesota accent and, like a eye roll and some government facts. That's what I have to offer.
Well, you're totally underselling yourself. All my audience there, I want to say she's got a huge audience and she's really proven herself. So I love your personal humor toward yourself, but I also have to give respect to you and say
thank you.
I love what you've done in the world, and I think the connection I'm making, I hope our listeners are too, is when you give yourself that permission to have the limitations and you stay in what you not only are good at, but what you love. And I think one of the things that can be confusing is I'm good at a lot of things. I'm actually really good at keynote speaking. I'm really good at traveling, doing it, as I'm sure you are as well. So sometimes that can be confusing. I should like this because I'm good at it, is the false belief, and clarity is about understanding what your higher purpose is and kind of your idea of what you're good at and your limitations. Confidence is about your beliefs, and then courage is about taking action based on that. So the confidence piece is really sorting out those beliefs. So once you have clarity on those limitations, don't keep moving into that false belief of, well, I'm good at it, so I should keep doing it. And I see that a lot with my high achievers. I want to just gently say, have you considered another belief, which is, I don't like it, and I have to do that, and there's probably something better for me out there. That is a scary place to kind of shift away from, because we think, well, I'm good at it, I should like it, and everyone's telling me I should like it.
That's right. And because that's the message you're being bombarded with, and you're being told that you have all these opportunities, and that when you're a high achiever, you want to maximize every opportunity. Like I'm speaking to my own self, you know, like I'm not speaking from a high horse position here. You want to yes, I'll do that thing. The public library? I'm there next week. I need to drive 8 hours. I'm still coming. You know what I mean? Like that, you have to maximize every single opportunity. That's the lie that we're telling ourselves. And I really think that is coming from a mindset of scarcity of I have to take every opportunity because I may not get another one in the future. I may not get
behind.
Yes. I may not get an opportunity that is right for me. And so I'm going to take an opportunity that is wrong for me. And I'm going to eat up all my time. I'm going to use up all my margin. I'm going to use up all of my mental resources. I'm going to hate the whole thing. I'm going to need 4 days when I come home to decompress. And ultimately that taking that wrong opportunity. And now I'm not saying you can't learn anything from that opportunity, but taking opportunities that are not in alignment with what your higher purpose is not actually helping you be a higher achiever.
Well said. So well said. It's fatiguing us, draining us. And, these are some of the flags making us more anxious, making us more tired, making us more scared. that you're cultivating a sense of scarcity versus abundance. So that only creates this inner turmoil, and it's keeping us more incongruent with our sense of self and really who we're made to be and who we think we should be. The gap begins to, just pull us further and further apart. And of course, the goal is as we age is to keep integrating. And I think I just want to say all of us have been there and are there. I mean, myself included. I've written books on it. I'm like, I have not conquered this. The goal really is to see it quicker, to see the flags that are happening. And I guess that's where, as we start wrapping up, I just want to say, what are some clear flags for you that you're moving out of your flow, you're moving out of your higher purpose, you're trying to do the shoulds and you're realizing I'm not, this isn't me. What are some of your flags?
Well, I mean, aside from the grueling travel schedule, which is clearly not for me. Also, I live in a remote place and it takes forever to get here to and from here. There is no, I live 20 minutes from LAX. No, it's a long journey, add another day on either side. So it just adds to my fatigue, etc. But I think one of the other red flags is, a question that I find really helpful is, if it's not a hell yes, then it needs to be a hell no.
I love that.
Right? If I don't immediately think oh my gosh, yes, I so want to do that.
Yeah.
Then it's not like I don't have other important work to do.
Yes.
You know? So I try to come back to this idea that I refuse to be distracted from my important work. And very often these opportunities seem wonderful, but in reality are a distraction from your important work.
Oh, I love it.
My important work is not sleeping on airport floors. That's not my important work.
Yes. And it fatigues you.
Yes.
We talk about fueling ourselves, right? It does the opposite. It drains you. And what fuel that you're trying to get into yourself to go do your work and your purpose, you get robbed of it.
That's right. That's right. And it becomes nothing but a distraction. And your important work is, I truly believe that, if you think about it, the life you're made for, that you have important work that you are meant to do. And discovering what that important work is part of each of our own journeys, right? But often there are people or groups or whatever your belief about this topic is, forces or whatever, that want to keep you from doing your important work. And so they will offer a million distractions.
Yes.
From
that
your
gets me in trouble.
important work. And that distractions could come in the form of incredible opportunities.
Yes. I did want to speak to that. I'm on sabbatical now and I'm loving it, but it's because I started doing a lot of hell yes. And I realized, oh my gosh, yes, hell yes. I had too many of them. And I think what I had to learn to do is say, you get to say hell yes to 5 things and not 50, understanding where that is. And I think, again, that's the shadow side of success. As you learn and grow and everything grows, you're so excited and you love it. And at the same hand, I know I'm more of an ambivert where I need to refuel behind the scenes introvert. And I love the extrovert time until I don't. Until I hit my limit, right?
Yeah.
You're like, and I'm done. And shoot, I've got 2 more days of coaching. How did I get stuck into this? And what do I do to kind of amp up? Those are those learning opportunities that it was a hell yes.
Yep.
But maybe I should have said, hell yes, I can do 1 day and not 3-day conference. Or maybe I'm freshest in the morning. So put me on at 9, please, versus a 3 p.m. You're going to lose me. These were things I started learning how to navigate some of these hell yeses. And I think that's what people don't speak to a lot about that. And I work with so many successful people that I go, all right, you got a lot of hell yeses in your life, don't you? What's your limit? How many hell yeses can you actually agree to?
And are those hell yeses distracting you from your important work?
Well said. Well said. Yeah.
And I really believe that if the groups, people, whatever your belief about this is, if they can't distract you from it, your important work, they cannot distract you from your important work, they will try to keep you from enjoying it.
Oh, that's good. Hang on. We got to pause there a minute, Sharon. That's so good. If they keep you from it, say it again.
If they can't keep you from doing your important work, they will try to make sure that you don't enjoy it.
Yes. And even subconsciously, I've seen it. I don't see it viciously. I've seen it viciously, done consciously, but I've also seen it subconsciously where you've stopped enjoying the very thing that you created and you realize, how did this get taken from me? Oh, I love that.
And so if you are spending all of your time in distracting with distractions with these like amazing opportunities, or it could even just be arguing with somebody on the internet. I mean, like there's a variety of things that can distract you. If you refuse to be distracted from your important work, there are going to be people who don't like that is your important work, and they are going to try to keep you from enjoying it. And that is a phrase that I personally have to remind myself of frequently, that I refuse to be distracted from my important work, and I refuse to allow you to rob me of the joy of my important work.
Yes. Because that's what refuels us, isn't it? The joy. Yeah. And I think that's, I'm in the couple weeks of sabbatical here, and boy, my clarity's coming on strong. But I think about the book I wrote, which I pretty much wrote for me, Sharon, let's be honest, because it was something I wanted to think through. But 18 chapters of it. And the very first chapter is really restorative rest and the permission to pull over. And I actually have a permission slip you give yourself at the very beginning of the book. And it's this reminder that you're not supposed to live life perfectly. You're just supposed to start growing so that you can see the signs quicker. You can know, oops, I need to pull over. Oops, I'm not going to say yes to this again. Oops, this wasn't a real hell yes. This was, I liked being liked kind of yes. Or I felt validated kind of yes. Or I was getting bored and I didn't think this through kind of yes. Or I was afraid of disappointing this person. All the reasons that we say yes when we shouldn't. It has been such a pleasure having you. I feel like we could talk all day. I think as we wrap up, I'd like to end with this question. What's your morning rituals?
I have, now that it's summer here in the great white north, I love to get up before everybody else. And that is because I'm naturally a morning person. It's not difficult for me to do that. So I'm not coming from a position of like, if you aren't up at 2, your day's ruined. Those people who are like,
zero judgment here.
Yeah. Get up at whatever time works for you. I love to get up early. And the time before no one else in my house is awake is like, that is just absolute gold to me. I just love it.
Me too.
I love it so much. And I love to get up and sit on my front porch, looking at my flowers and listening to the birds and drinking my coffee and petting my dogs and just enjoying I live in the woods, enjoying the beauty of my surroundings. It means a lot to me. Every day I just feel like, dang, I truly feel blessed that I get to be surrounded by this and live here. So I love to do that. I love to just have a few minutes of quiet to myself. And then often if I'm working on something like a writing project, after I've had my 20 minutes of sitting on the porch, watering my flowers, looking at my hummingbirds, things of that nature, taking pictures. I'm like, is this who I am? An old lady with a visor taking pictures of
I've got hummingbird feeders
dahlias.
too. Yep.
Yeah. Like, oh, look at it. It's a yellow one. Like, this is what it is. I can't help it. You like what you like. So,
totally.
Usually, because again, I'm a morning person, that is when I will do my hardest tasks that require the largest amount of brain power for me. Later, after I've used my peak performance brain power, that is often when I will walk on my treadmill and do other work that requires less of my intense focus.
Totally resonate. I sync up with what you're saying. I'm just thinking about myself. Now I'm in California. You're Michigan, right?
I'm in Minnesota.
Minnesota, sorry. You're in Minnesota. I'm in California. So I had my tea on the back patio and the hummingbirds were all around me. It just started in nature, and either just sitting there or starting with something contemplative allows me to start getting my clarity and really my focus of what is my higher purpose for today. Isn't that an important daily question to ask, to remind us that it is definitely a transcendent, high level thinking question, but man, to be asking it, what's my highest purpose for this conversation, for this moment, for this people that I'm going to be meeting with? I found that to be so helpful to center me and make sure that I'm bringing my best self into the conversation, and I'm doing what I want to do, and I'm not getting distracted from what people think I should be doing or what I maybe have been told in my younger years that I should be doing, and letting myself nurture that own clarity, confidence, and courage in myself.
I love it.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate your space and just making time for me. And any last words before we sign off?
Don't be distracted. Do not allow yourself to be distracted from your important work.
Love it. Perfect way to sign off. Thanks so much, Sharon. And thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We had such a great time today. And obviously, we are all stepping into this life that we're made for. But isn't it nice to have a little bit of support along the way? If you want to find out more about the life that you're made for, come find me at heatherpenny.com. Go ahead and subscribe. Give us a review. That really helps us out and helps spread the word. You get to step into the life that you're made for. Cheering you on.